Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Turned in part by his own father. What we are learning tonight about the 22-year-old suspect, this man right here, accused of murdering Charlie Kirk, first announced earlier today by President Trump.
I hope he was going to be found guilty, I would imagine, and I hope he gets the death penalty.
In Arizona, memorials growing throughout the day as the president said that he'll be attending Charlie Kirk's funeral, and over at the White House, security in focus as well. What our Kelly Meyer is learning tonight from those inside that building. Also this evening, heading to Memphis. Why the president says the National Guard will soon be activated in parts of Tennessee. Does this mean the focus has blown away from the Windy City? But first tonight, here from The Hill, the manhunt coming to an end, thanks in part to a father and a youth pastor. President Trump first revealing this morning the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination now in custody. Law enforcement and the governor of Utah says some of those closest to this man, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, helped authorities take him into custody.
I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well.
The governor of Utah there speaking today. Allie Bradley live in Arizona tonight at the Turning Point USA headquarters. But first to our Brian Enton live in Utah once again, where that suspect, Brian, now charged with aggravated murder. As authorities say, the death penalty will be pursued. This was a huge search that actually ended, we believe, last night, right, Brian? Tell us what happened here.
Yeah, 10 o'clock last night, Blake. The suspect, Tyler Robinson, now inside the jail behind me. No bond, which is no surprise there. Charged with aggravated murder, as you said. And it was his family that helped lead to the arrest here. Reports are that he confessed to his father. That's essentially what the governor said. And then the father brought in a family friend who is also a pastor who we're told is also a member of law enforcement to come in, talk with him, and then they called the sheriff last night, 10 o'clock, FBI, sheriff's office there, and state police all went to Washington, Utah to make the arrest. It's about 3.5 hours from where I am in Utah County, Washington, Utah, way in the corner, southern corner of Utah, closer to Las Vegas. They have brought the suspect, Tyler Robinson, back here, brought him back here overnight. We're told that he will go before a judge on Tuesday. And then the court process will begin. And the governor has made clear, he said it twice now, they 100% fully intend to go after the death penalty. And by the way, they have the firing squad here in Utah. Blake.
Wow. The bullet casings as well, Brian, the governor revealing what was on those.
Yes, on those bullet casings, there were several different arrows pointed in different directions, which we're told is a reference to a video game. And other just disturbing slogans, anti-fascist slogans, all of that under investigation as they try to look into the planning that took place. That's one thing that we still don't know about, that we know the FBI is investigating right now, doing interviews. How soon before this did he start scoping out the school? How did he know what roof to go up onto? How did he know that perfect angle 150 yards from Charlie Kirk? All of that is still under investigation.
All right, our Brian Enton once again for us in Orem, Utah this evening. Brian, thank you. Over now to our Allie Bradley, who is live in Phoenix out there on this Friday afternoon. Turning Point USA headquarters. We see the memorial there behind you, Allie.
Yeah, hey, Blake, another gut-wrenching day here at Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix. You can see the memorials growing. So we obviously have this memorial here, but then we also have this one as we swing around and show you just how much it really has grown. People leaving letters specifically for Charlie, praying for him and his family, but there are so many letters being left here as well for his widow, Erica. And we're seeing a lot of different things, Bible verses, things like that. But we want to share some reaction that we've heard from individuals who we've spoken to on the ground. Take a listen.
He didn't deserve this just for a difference of opinion. How can we debate and learn from each other if violence is the answer? It's not.
It's just, it breaks our hearts that this is the world we're now living in. And it's also scary.
Dang, bro, you had no idea. You had no idea. It was much bigger than you had any idea.
You know, everyone down here, Blake, says it feels like they are missing a family member, like they lost their brother. And everything down here has something to do with his faith, with religion. And people here, there's no anger, there's no violence, just sadness and people uniting in prayer. Signage reading, you know, well done, faithful servant, of course, from the book of Matthew. And so everybody down here is uniting in faith and prayer, just like they say Charlie would want them to do, Blake.
Allie Bradley, live for us in Phoenix tonight. Allie, thank you. With us now, former Secret Service Special Agent Charles Marino, who's been with us all week long here, back with us tonight here on the Hill. Charles, when we were talking yesterday, I asked you, when do you think that they would have the suspect in custody? You said within 24 hours. It turned out that it was, at that point, within about 6 hours or so. The breakthrough, it seemed, came with the family, right?
Yeah, it did. And that is not uncommon in these cases. You know, usually there's a 50-50 chance that the suspect will still be alive, especially the further away from the incident you get, because they normally take their own lives or create a scenario where law enforcement has to use deadly force. But to go back to the family is not that unheard of, especially since this appears to be well planned on the part of the suspect. We now know his residence 3 hours away from the university. So we're going to have to, you know, listen to this investigation, which is going to produce a lot of details. But the difference with this investigation, as I said, is we still have a live suspect. That, if he cooperates, which I anticipate he will, to remove that death penalty from the table, we're going to learn a lot about preparation, motive, whether there was any known accomplices, and exactly where he was both prior and after the incident.
Interesting. You mentioned the death penalty because officials there have talked about this for a couple days now. And it sounds like you're saying, or maybe not, I don't know, tell me, that maybe they're so prominently saying that to maybe use that as a leverage point now to try to get information out of him?
Well, I think it'll be more the defense using it via information being offered by the suspect. I think there's only so much information you can garner, and we've seen this in past cases. Butler, Pennsylvania, a perfect example. What was really the specific motivation that causes an individual to carry out an attack, an assassination like this? And now, in this case, law enforcement has the opportunity to actually ask the suspect. I think his defense team, his lawyer, will try and leverage that cooperation for law enforcement to learn more, because it's not always the physical, the digital, or the forensic evidence that are going to give you those deep-rooted answers.
Charles Marino, been with us here for the last few days. Always appreciate the time, sir. See you again soon, Charles. Thank you. Of course. All right. I wanted to take a moment here with all of this going on over the last few days to show you what that man right there is, a name and a face you probably didn't know until about 48 hours ago. He's the governor there in the state of Utah, Spencer Cox. And here's what he said today about how Utah, and really by extension as well, this country has responded to Kirk's assassination.
There's no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this.
Joining us now, Chris Steyerwalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. You and I both know Spencer Cox. Probably outside of the state of Arizona, 98 to 99% of the country did not know him until the last couple days. But as we've been listening to what he's been saying and the messages that he's been giving in a hyper-polarizing, partisan climate, he's kind of laid some of the groundwork, Chris, as to maybe how to think about going about things, I don't know, in the days, weeks, months, years forward.
Well, this is a project he's been working on that long predates this, right? So Utah is different from most Republican states. A large number of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints there. They are conservative, but they're awfully nice, right? People in Utah are awfully nice. They will share their green Jell-O with you anytime you ask them to. And Spencer Cox has a constituency of people who are very conservative, but they're also social order kind of people, right? The Republican Party of Utah is Mitt Romney was popular in Utah for a reason.
Right.
And what Spencer Cox has tried to do, I think, in Utah is say, how do we get our conversation back to a better place? How do we have a more decent, more humane, more wholesome kind of politics that works? So this is a project he's been working on. I've covered it. I've talked to him before for years. And so in this way, he is the right guy for the moment because that's what the moment called for.
Right guy for the moment because it's what it called for. What about pushing this forward, I guess, is the obvious follow-up?
Look, if you want to, if a person wants to, they could look around the internet, they could look around cable television, they could look wherever they want. They can find rotten people saying rotten things.
Yep.
No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But in a universe that stretches from as far right as Spencer, I mean, you and I sat here on the day of the assassination, and we listened to Roger Marshall, a senator from Kansas. No one is more conservative than Roger Marshall, right? He is an inorganic rock of conservatism and a MAGA guy and all of that stuff. People from Roger Marshall on the right to Bernie Sanders, who is the avatar, the representative of progressive democratic socialism in America, agree on this. So you can go around and you can hunt for the people that say, oh, well, look what this person said that I didn't like. We should silence them or shut them up. Or you could say, oh, my gosh, this is great. The overwhelming hyper majority of Americans, regardless of their party, believe in free speech, believe in the First Amendment, believe in decency, believe in having a good conversation. That is the lesson to take away from this week, not picking the nuts out of the debris underneath to find the people who offend you.
Chris Direwalt, see you later in the show. Appreciate it. Host of The Hill Sunday. We'll catch you later. All right, still to come tonight. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, sending shockwaves through Capitol Hill.
It just shows where we're at as a country, politically speaking, how we need to learn how to debate again and have open conversation.
Mark-Wayne Mullins, senator there, addressing what we've witnessed here in the last few days. Other side of the break, one of his colleagues live here on the Hill, former Navy SEAL who became a lawmaker, who became a member of the cabinet. How he views all of this when we return. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Mounting pressure tonight on the Secret Service to keep President Trump safe in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder and increased threats of political violence. The president has already survived, as you know, 2 attempts on his life. Ryan Ralph, now on trial at this moment for last year's assassination attempt in Florida. For more, our Kelly Meyer live at the White House. Kelly, you've been there all day, all week, like you are every week, all month, all year. This one obviously much different, and you're learning more about sort of how the White House is handling security.
Yeah, and I know we've been talking about, Blake, just how quiet it's been over the last few days, and certainly somber here today as well. I was speaking with a senior White House official earlier, and they did say that this is bringing up memories from Butler, Pennsylvania, just how eerily similar it is with the shooter on the roof. But I'm also told that they are fearful, but they do feel safe with Secret Service around. I do know that they are increasing security around the president. We saw examples of that with the 9/11 ceremony at the Pentagon, where they moved that indoors. We saw that at the New York Yankees game with the bulletproof glass around the president. I wanted to take a listen to what the president had to say about the future of outdoor events.
I'm a little bit of a fatalist, I guess. I say, got to do your thing. Or get out of the business and go into something else. It's a dangerous business, and frankly, it always has been.
So he does believe that outdoor events should continue going forward. I'm also told that he will be attending the funeral of Charlie Kirk and that it's expected to happen after his trip to the United Kingdom, so later next week. Blake?
All right, our Kelly Meyer live tonight at the White House. Kelly, thank you. So this conversation about lowering the temperature and reducing the threat of political violence, how is that accomplished? I wanted to talk to Ryan Zinke tonight. He's a congressman from Montana, Republican, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. I wanted to talk to you because, for the folks who don't know your resume, you're a Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6, commander in the Navy, 22 years, I believe, 22, 23? Okay. Montana Senate, you were in the House, were a cabinet member, and then back in the House.
Yep.
You've kind of walked the walk for many years along this front. It's been an awful last 3 days. And I wonder from your perch, from your how you see things right now, sort of what you reflect upon at this moment.
Well, obviously a very sad day and a sad period in America's history. And look, I was a Navy SEAL. And I and many of my colleagues, we fought for America. We fought with Americans. We didn't fight against Americans. And what's disheartening is, the dialogue. You see, assassination attempts. You see a political assassination in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. You see one with Charlie Kirk, a father, a great patriot, a loving husband, assassinated. And ironically, his assassination was over his message, which was, let's have a dialogue. Let's talk. In our country, the strength is that, we may agree or disagree, but disagreement should never result in violence. The opposition, I love the fact that we should have a strong Democrat opposition who delivers messages, but also talks about how to change it better. Not just identify the problem, but come with solutions.
So you want that, you welcome that.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for our country to have a strong opposition that delivers not only criticism, but delivers a better way of doing things. That's America. But to have all of a sudden violence spill out, where just because someone disagrees with you, that somehow that act is appropriate, it's wildly inappropriate. And all of us in leadership positions have got to say, look, enough of the anger. Enough of these town halls that people come just for the purpose of not a dialogue, but just disrupt.
As I mentioned, you're a Navy SEAL, so I got to imagine you've seen some things and been through some things that I know you can't talk about, but it's I'm sure been a lot. And I know you've received death threats as well. And I wonder how you process that part of that, especially thinking about, the way forward.
When I was a secretary, I received death threats. My family received death threats. My dog received death threats. And when I was a congressman, same neighborhood, I didn't move. Things were fine. But, there's a Trump derangement syndrome. It is real. I've lost friends. I just ask everyone, just get the anger out. Everyone's just got to take a deep breath and focus on what's really important. Moving our economy forward. Making sure people have jobs, opportunity. We have a homeless issue. We have a drug problem in this issue. Let's focus on things that make this country great.
I spoke to one of your colleagues. Chris referenced this because it's happened on this desk on Wednesday when we had Roger Marshall, who's a senator, Republican, who said that even in the moment he was reflecting and looking inward. Have you heard that as sort of a theme amongst your colleagues over the last 48 hours or so?
Yeah, I think, we should look and reflect. This is, as the governor pointed out, a watershed moment. It's a watershed moment depending on what this country does. Are we going to continue this? Are we going to continue to not be able to have dialogue and talk to your neighbor? Again, there are 6 SEALs in the House, 1 in the Senate. It makes a difference, I think, when you've given an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And so perhaps the veterans that, when I fought, I didn't fight for Republicans. I didn't fight for Democrats. I fought for Americans. And let's go back to core values.
Ryan Zinke is a Republican from Montana. I read out the long list of attributes. I'd shake your hand, but, good luck on the recovery.
We'll come back fighting.
All right, I have no doubt you will. Right, Congressman, thanks so much.
Always
appreciate it. All right, still much more ahead tonight. Other side of the Hill. Growing calls to bring down the political temperature in the country following the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. So what are the next steps forward? You just heard some of it there. President Trump, by the way, some news that he made earlier today. The crime crackdown that he brought here to Washington, D.C., Now he says it's going to Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, and the congressman who represents part of that town. With us on the other side. All right, live look now. White House, of course, there, as it's 6:30 here in Washington on this Friday evening. As you might imagine, the mood incredibly somber inside the building after the shocking death of Charlie Kirk. He was a friend of many, many on the staff there. The president spending the day in New York City, remembering Kirk in a television interview. But the president tending to other business as well. He's set to meet with, for example, the Qatari government later this evening. And he announced the next city in his crime crackdown.
We're going to Memphis. Memphis that's the next city. Deeply troubled. And the mayor is happy. He's a Democrat mayor. The mayor is happy. And the governor, Tennessee, the governor is happy. Deeply troubled. We're going to fix that just like we did Washington.
Now, Memphis, Tennessee, it tops the list when it comes to violent crime. That is according to data from the FBI from last year. Now, the president's declaration comes just days after Memphis police reported decreases in violent crime in the first 8 months of the year compared to previous years. But again, keep in mind, a decrease off of the most violent city in this country, according to the numbers. Memphis's mayor reacting this way today.
I want to be clear. I did not ask for the National Guard, and I don't think it's the way to drive down crime. However, that decision has been made.
Now, there are roughly 633,000 people in Memphis, Tennessee, many more in the surrounding areas as well. With me now, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaigns, Dan Cannonen. Dan, hello. Might be frozen. Definitely not frozen because I see him nodding along. Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. Dan's back. There we are. Hi, Dan. Mick, I'm going to start with you here. The president's saying he's going into Memphis, Tennessee. What to make of it?
I like it. I mean, look, it's a blue city in a red state. It is a city that's having a difficulty with crime. It sort of puts a lot of the politics aside. I think it's a smart move politically and a really good move from a practical standpoint. What I can't understand and what I would ask Cannon if I'm sitting there with him is, Dan, why can't a Democrat mayor, regardless, a mayor of any party, just say, you know what? Yeah, we could use the help. This is great. Let's figure out a way to do it together. Why can't they just say that? I got to think if I'm a Republican mayor of a city and the Democrat president says, look, you need help, and I got a problem with crime in my city, the answer is yes. Why do you have to politicize crime?
Well, I think there's lots of good answers to that, Mick. One of them is that I think the Trump administration has not shown a lot of good faith in this process. It's been so political. It's about this police force that Donald Trump can command to get his optics and his visuals out there from D.C. to Chicago. I do think it's a better look for him to go to a place like Memphis when the governor in particular is behind this. But I will agree with you on one point. I think Democratic mayors or governors should lead with crime as an issue that we want to tackle. And there's lots of ways to tackle crime, including better federal support from the ATF, from the FBI, law enforcement grants locally for state police, local police, training, economic programs, healthcare programs, social programs. There's a multitude of ways to attack this. And I think if the president was serious about this, I would love a crime bill with a budget that's focused on this, as opposed to this sort of tour city, which is by its very nature temporary and not.
So I had...
But this looks like optics to me.
I had Tom Homan, who, of course, you both know, border czar of the Trump administration. And I asked him the other day this question. Let's tee it up. And the context here, Mick and Dan, is that Operation Midway Blitz. The administration launched that into Chicago earlier this week. Roll it, and then I'll pick it up on the other side. Is that a realization, a recognition from the White House that the National Guard most likely won't be sent in to Chicago?
National Guard's always on the table. Beyond that, I won't comment.
Mick, what I'm watching here is the president said Chicago, 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 and J.B. Pritzker said no repeatedly, and then he started talking about, well, Louisiana and Tennessee, and it just makes me think that maybe there's the White House is resigned to the idea that they can't go necessarily where they want to go. Is that partly as well what this is about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's an admission of that. I think it's more of a reflection of the reality, which is Pritzker was going to sue. And there's a really good chance it would have been delayed for several weeks, if not longer, in the courts to prevent it to happen. And if I want to take the Trump side of this argument, it's like, okay, fine, you don't want it, we'll go someplace else. You deal with this. You explain to people, J.B. Pritzker, when you want to run for president in a couple of years, while you live in such a violent city, you had a chance to do something about it, you turn it down. Fine, we'll go off to Memphis. You guys say you accuse us of doing this in only Democrat cities and Democrat states. We'll look at Louisiana, a Democrat city, yeah, but again, most big cities are Democrat controlled, but Louisiana, a heavily Republican state. Or we go to Memphis, again, a Democrat city, but in a Republican state, just to show everybody, look, we're actually serious about doing something with crime. Look, Trump didn't go to Chicago because it was J.B. Pritzker. Trump went to Chicago because it makes the news all the time for the violent crime, and he figured that was the best place to spend the efforts. But if you're going to end up in court for 6 months, you can't do anything, go someplace else. That just makes practical sense.
Dan, I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, look, I mean, the big, beautiful bill cut $500,000 from ATF, 2,000 agents. It cut further assistance to state and local governments and gave huge tax breaks to billionaires. If you really want to reduce crime, you would do it through those means where you have trained law enforcement with the tools, the techniques to get to that.
You and I both know that doesn't kick in until next year. We're still funding under last year's levels. None of the stuff in the big beautiful bill has hit the pavement.
My point, Mick, is that it's about his intention. His intention is to own the optics and the headlines, not to deal with the problem.
Guys, hang around. I mentioned we were going to have the congressman from Memphis with us. He's hooked up now. David Kustoff is by the way, Mick and Dan, other side of the break, we'll bring them back in. But there's the congressman, Congressman Kustoff. David Kustoff represents the eastern parts of that city, surrounding areas as well, with us tonight. Congressman, hello. You've been listening to some of this. This would impact your town, many of your constituents. You in favor of it?
Yeah, I am. I support the president's decision. I'm glad he's sending the National Guard to Memphis. I heard part of that discussion. It's a short-term solution, but I think it will help. I mean, look, we've seen what it's done in Washington, D.C. I think the people in Washington, D.C. feel safer that the National Guard was in Washington cleaning things up. I know I feel safer in Washington, D.C. when I'm there, and my staff feels safer in Washington, D.C. now that the National Guard has been in and around the city. But I also think longer term, we're going to encourage the administration to look at sending additional federal resources to the Memphis area and the West Tennessee area for longer term results. More FBI agents, more ATF agents, more assistant U.S. attorneys. It goes hand in hand, but this is a good first step, sending the National Guard to Memphis.
As I understand it, Congressman, 10,700 approximately Tennessee Army National Guard there in your state. How many do you think are needed in Memphis?
Don't know, and obviously I'm going to leave that to the president and to the administration and to the. I mean,
is it hundreds? Is it thousands?
I don't know I don't know what the answer is to that. I think we leave that to the experts. But the main thing is from just a standpoint of the citizens feeling safer in Memphis. It's going to do the job. It's going to go a long way. And again, from a short-term perspective, this is what Memphis needs. Longer term, we need more. Frankly, we need more Memphis police officers. The governor has done a good job this week announcing that there are going to be more state troopers that are coming to Memphis. We have one Democrat clerk who's upset that the state troopers have written 1,000 extra traffic tickets. I say that's a good thing. Let's enforce the law from the broken windows theory all the way up.
David Kustoff, you were a federal prosecutor, right, in a prior life?
Former U.S. attorney here
during
U.S.
attorney.
The George W. Bush days. And look, I think whether you're red, blue, yellow, whatever, you want to feel safe. You want to be able to know that you're safe in your own home and going to the grocery store and going to the gas station. And so short-term, long-term, we're all in favor of it.
All right, Congressman, I appreciate the hustle trying to link up with us there. David Kustoff is the Republican from parts of Memphis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well. Still to come here on the Hill, other side of the break. The governor of Utah, echoing the words of Charlie Kirk, asking Americans to stay grounded.
Internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay.
The assassination of the 31-year-old conservative star, the hateful rhetoric going around as well. What does this all mean for the future of politics? Mick, Dan, Chris Steyerwalt as well, back on the other side of the break.
Saturday, Charlie Kirk, a political icon, gunned down on a college campus as the search for answers continues.
I'm tracking the latest on the assassination.
The killing of Charlie Kirk, Saturday at 8/7 Central on NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. In the aftermath of the tragedy that we witnessed this week, the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk, of course, there's inevitably going to be a lot of opining. But we will always turn to our leaders in times like this. President Trump, for example, would talk about Charlie Kirk's work.
Such a good word, such a solid word. You know, we have so many bad people, so many bad philosophies, ideologies, politics. His was basically just good. He was just on.
Other leaders will emerge out of circumstance. For example, at his press conference earlier today, the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, would use Kirk's own words to describe the current climate.
Remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement where violence is not an option.
Full panel here with me now. As we end the week here on The Hill, Emily Brooks is the congressional reporter for The Hill. Chris Steyerwalt, of course, you know I'm back with me, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. We'll bring back in Mick Mulvaney, Dan Cannonen as well, who've been hanging out with us here throughout this evening. Guys, thank you. Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. Spencer Cox, I think I wanted to talk about him today, Chris. I know Connell was talking about him as well, and I was like, man, Connell hit the nail on the head. I thought that was one of the things to talk about as well, because you and I were both sitting here on Wednesday, and one of the very first things after that first press conference, I read a bunch of what Spencer Cox said live, and it's been time and time and time again since then, and you got to hope that his message stays with for the months and years to come.
Well, look, the place where I will disagree with Governor Cox is decent discourse is the exception, not the rule, right? So if we look across human history, if we look across American history, the periods in which we have political violence, where we have unrest, America is exceptional compared to the rest of world history. And the period of time, I'm a little bit older than you, but, you know, the period of time when I grew up in the 1980s, we're the Gen X forever, the 1980s and into the 1990s, where there was relatively little political violence and there was that stuff, that's not normal. Right? What is normal throughout human history is that people resort to violence to resolve their disputes. And the reason that we do this show, the reason that we're here in Washington, is to elevate and venerate, I hope, a system that gives us a place to resolve our differences. And if we do not treat the American system and the constitutional order, and you and I talked about before, Spencer Cox is on the right, Bernie Sanders is on the left. What did they both tell us to do? Go back to the Constitution. Go back to the Constitution. Next week is Constitution Day. We have a mechanism to resolve our disputes peaceably in this country. It is a miracle that it exists, and we should treat it like that.
But Spencer Cox, you know, he does have trying to tamp down on things, but
remember, political realities here. He is in Utah, a state that really liked Mitt Romney, who was not a popular figure in today's Republican Party that is dominated by MAGA and Trump and really retribution-seeking type of politics. And there's a lot of people on the right who are very, very angry about this moment. I was talking with my editor this week about how this is very apt. It's the week of the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And if you remember, after then, there was so much anger after that day. There's so much anger in the MAGA movement after this, and they're really not looking for any compromise or to tone down anything right now.
I have to say, we were extolling Utahns and their generosity of the green jello in a previous segment. Curtis, their new senator, I think strikes me as a very normal kind of human being. Mike Lee, their other senator, it gets weird out there. He gets very weird on social media. Based Mike Lee is a very unusual individual.
That's the handle, yep.
But I think by and large, I have to just keep saying it. It's not just Utahns. I think Americans generally, the number of people who crave some sort of functional democracy where we can work together far outnumbers.
Will Republicans give that to them, though, is the question.
Well,
and Democrats, too. Will they get that from their leaders who are dominating Washington today?
Exactly. As Democrats celebrate Gavin Newsom's descent into trolling and cruelty and that part, right? And Democrats may say, Donald Trump deserves it. Donald Trump's a liar. Donald Trump's cruel. He deserves to be treated with dishonesty and cruelty. And I always quote, and I have to quote again, in the great movie Unforgiven, as Gene Hackman's character says to Clint Eastwood's character, he says, I don't deserve to die like this. And Clint Eastwood says, deserves got nothing to do with it. Neither of these parties deserve to be elevated and esteemed. They're both kind of a mess. They don't deserve it. And as a people, we deserve better than these two political parties. But I got to tell you, we got to fix what we've got.
I want to bring Dan and Mick in. Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden-Harris campaign. Dan, take it from there.
Well, I think Chris is right to a great extent. And the question I have is what's next, for American political politics? I've said it for a couple months now that I think that 2028, could be a lot like 2008 in the sense of a turn-the-page moment, and I mean that for both Democrats and for Republicans. Donald Trump will not be on the ballot again, I believe, and there's a moment to shift from whatever this is to where we could go. And I want to note Spencer Cox's really good rhetoric, not just the clip you played, Blake, but there was a long...
I think Dan froze there. Let me bring Dan.
That was
Dan.
long.
Yeah, we got the important part where he agreed with me. We got the important part where he agreed with Chris.
Right. All right, I'll let Mick take us home here. Mick?
Look, let's focus on the positive for a second, which is a lot of people are saying a lot of the things you want leaders to say in these circumstances, and that's good. I'll take the opportunity again to commend the young Republicans and young Democrats from Connecticut who put out one of the classiest joint statements I've seen in a long time. That's great. I just wonder how long it's going to last. I mean, look, during the moment of silence, out of respect for Charlie Kirk on the floor, a shouting match ensued immediately afterwards. So let's see where our leaders all try to take us.
All right, Mick Mulvaney, thank you, sir. Cannonen, I know you're out there and you can hear me. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Emily Brooks,
you were great,
as well.
Dan. Best work ever.
Thank you, guys. Steyerwald has the best Sunday. You got it. Steyerwald has the best Sunday show in the biz. Tell me who you got.
We have, in addition to the great political guests, we also have Yuval Levin, who is the philosopher who the governor mentioned in his remarks.
Interesting.
We have him to talk about the Constitution. We have and about a better, more perfect union.
The Hill, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on NewsNation. Catch you then.
We'll make your television smell like cinnamon.
We're not done. Other side of the break with all the news this week. I wanted to share something that'll just make you feel good. Plus a look at what's trending when we return. You're you're just getting home, trying to catch up on the top stories before we head into the weekend, here's some of what's trending right now on thehill.com. Of course, suspect in Charlie Kirk shooting identified as Tyler Robinson. We also talked about this throughout the show. The president says Memphis is the next target of the federal crime crackdown. And then out west in California, lawmakers pass a ban on masks for federal immigration agents. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is scan the QR code on your screen or just head on over to thehill.com. All right, so it's been a really tough news week here. So I wanted to leave you tonight and share just a bit of good news. There's a lot of good out there. And in one case, it comes in the form of a cardboard box. I want to show you Pizza Man Pizza just north of Minneapolis, owned by Chris Kolstad. But now I want to show you the back of Pizza Man Pizza. It's not exciting, just like a lot of takeout places, a few dumpsters in the alley. But Chris noticed that people started eating out of those dumpsters. And here's how he got to the bottom of it. He posted a message earlier this summer that said this, that said, hey, if you're out here doing this, you can come talk to me. We're sitting in a building full of food 24/7. Please come ask. If you are too embarrassed to ask, find a way to call us and ask us to leave a small cheese pizza outside the back door. It might have been the shortest delivery note in that store's history, but that message was received. Here's what he got back in return. Pizza Man, we are a large family going through a hard time. This act of kindness from you to our family is so appreciated. Thank you. A small act of kindness from one person going a long way for many others. Still to come here as our coverage continues on NewsNation. Elizabeth Vargas reports. Picks it up here in a few seconds. She'll be talking to the mayor out there in Memphis, Tennessee. Reaction with what President Trump had to say today.